Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Just real quick, if you hear some construction and stuff going on in the background, they're working on flooring today, and so they've already kind of been a little rowdy, but hey, they're getting after it, and we don't want to stop them because we all want to be back in our offices.
That's right.
So, what's up, man? How's your week going?
I am tired.
Dude, I am too.
Yeah, we've been playing baseball every night, like an hour away to finish up this All-Star tournament. Thankfully, it's over.
Yeah.
And so we can finally get back to normal life. But, yeah, Monday night we didn't get home till like 12:45.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that kind of just set the trajectory of the week. Just been trying to catch up since then.
Yeah.
But sun's shining. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, I got.
This Alani Nu will kick in eventually, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah, I still have my heart still beating. You know, making sure I'm alive. So, yeah, I've been leading worship at youth camp this weekend. So it's early mornings to get to work and try to make sure that all my regular duties are taken care of, and then book it out to camp in the afternoon, and then help the wife because she's doing all the cooking for youth camp. So help out with dinner prep and everything else like that, and then lead worship and not get back home until 10:30 or so. 11 was the first night, and yeah, I'm feeling it. And I'm back on a no caffeine kick again. I know you always look at me funny whenever I say this, so
That ain't gonna last long in ministry.
yeah, well, it did like the first year that I was here, so. But
We'll see.
I just got tired of waking up. Like, that's the first thing I'm thinking of is like, gotta have caffeine.
Alani Nu is one of the reasons I wake up. It tastes so good.
It has nothing to do with working with me.
No. This is the only thing that allows me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Some days I know how you feel about me if you've got two of them, right?
I've had 2 Alani Nu every day this week, just because of this baseball schedule's been so like crazy.
Yeah.
The other teams like went and stayed, like up in that area, but where we're only an hour away, most of us just chose like, hey, we'll just drive it.
Well, I mean, and y'all just you got to think like you just had like that big old trip to Cincinnati, and that was quite a bit. And then you've got other tournaments and stuff that you're.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask.
I hate staying in hotels.
Yeah.
Like we stayed in a hotel at the beginning of this state tournament for 2 nights, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Somebody asked me recently if I'm OCD, and I was like, I don't know. I've never been diagnosed with that. And then I told Megan that someone asked me that, and she goes, yeah, I'd say a little bit. I'm like, because it's getting like honestly I can't hardly travel without getting like real weird about where I'm staying.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating because like, I don't know, when you're a teenager or you're a college student, like you'll sleep
anywhere.
You sleep with the mice, like it's whatever.
Yeah.
And now approaching 40, I'm like, yeah, that bed is going to make me not be able to walk for 2 weeks. So
now the bed that y'all have at home, is it like one of those like super comfy pillow top, or is it a little bit firm?
We took one of those. What were those checks that we got during COVID?
The COVID handouts.
Yeah, whatever those things were, and we bought a sleep number.
Okay.
And most of the time I like it. Sometimes I don't even like it. I'm just very particular. But some of it is, like hotels, it's like the cleanliness.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I just
like my house.
Yeah, for sure.
I just like being home
It is weird, like staying in a hotel because there's been 1,000 people that have slept in that same room before.
Exactly.
But
And I'm not saying people don't clean the sheets and stuff like they're supposed to, but like you are trusting someone else that they did bring clean sheets in there and that like
yeah,
that nothing was missed.
well, and
Like
we've worked regular jobs that it didn't like
yeah,
if you could cut corners, you
some
did. Like you can't do
that
that
and
in
then
ministry.
sometimes things are busy and you thought that you changed that pillowcase, but maybe you didn't. I don't
If you're
like
doing the
yeah,
same
over and
room,
over. Because like for me, like when I preach 2 sermons, sometimes I forget what I said in the first one if I didn't say it in the second one.
yeah,
It could be the same thing with changing bed sheets all day long. Well, did I already do that duvet or
yeah. Did I vacuum this floor? Did I wipe
yeah.
down that
That-
sink?
I'm not saying
And
anyone does it on purpose. I'm saying that mistakes happen, and the very possibility of that makes me like,
yeah,
I don't know. The whole thing I just like being that. I like being busy throughout the day. As anyone that knows me, like
yeah,
we're very rarely ever home, but like when it's time to go to bed, I want to be in my bed.
yeah.
Like that's, I don't know. That's just the weird
You know
me.
how I choose a hotel? I don't even care what the ratings are as long as they have a hot breakfast.
Well, I mean, a hot breakfast is a good way to help pick a hotel, but I do care about the ratings.
Yeah.
Like I won't.
I don't even read them.
Sometimes you go to certain parts of West Virginia though, where it's like, well, you're just gonna stay wherever
Yeah.
because they've got 2 options and neither one of them are 4 or 5 stars.
Yeah.
That I think that might have been the case this past week,
Yeah.
and it was hard. It was so hard
Yeah.
because you're just like constantly looking like I don't know
Yeah.
type deal.
I also try to stay away from places where you enter the front of the room from the outside.
Well, those are motels. I
Yeah.
will not stay at
No, never.
that probably sounds like really like bougie or like arrogant, but like I won't stay in a motel.
No.
I said something about a hotel. I had our last senior luncheon, and someone said, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And I'm like, "Did I just sound like really, really like I'm like bad because I'm like trashing this hotel that maybe they have an affinity for?" Like,
It's like their uncles or something.
yeah, Megan has worked for hotels since she got out of high school.
Yeah.
And so we and I think if I'm not misremembering, she's always been either affiliated with a Hilton or like IHG properties, which are like the Holiday Inn and Express
Yeah.
and stuff. They're nice hotels.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all I've really ever been accustomed to.
Yeah.
So I can't like I'm not going and staying at like the Motel 6.
Yeah.
Even if they can keep the light on for me as long as they want, I'm not coming. I'm just not going to do it.
I don't care how many trees you have. If
Yeah.
I'm not staying at a double tree or a triple tree or a
No,
quadruple
Doubletree's
tree.
Marriott, so I'd be done with that.
Yeah, I
I
don't
know.
know.
I'm
I don't know
I'm
about
bougie
that.
when it comes to hotels.
Well, I don't even know. Like, I don't know that I've ever stayed at
Yeah.
one. I mean, if they don't have a hot breakfast, I'm not staying there.
Yeah, I said something about it was like a Days Inn or a Hampton or Comfort Inn or something. I don't know what it was that I said, and she's like, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And I'm like, "Well, if it's not a Hilton property or a Marriott property, I'm not very interested in it."
I'll tell you this much: I'd like to be one of those guys that goes around and reviews hotels.
But
And
then
the
you gotta do
reason-
the bad ones.
Well, I think that the good ones far outweigh the bad ones.
Yeah, but just having to do the bad ones, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. If I walk into the room and I go, okay, I'm not sleeping in this, that's part of my review. Like, I don't have to. Like, if I go in there and it smells of like 10-day-old cigarette smoke and like the floors are dirty and all that other stuff, then I'm not gonna subject myself to sleep in that place.
Once
for
you walk
the ne-
in, though, whatever's already in there could come out with you. That's my fear.
Mm,
I'm very scared of bugs. Like when I travel, like I
like
don't
bed
want
bugs,
just
dude, for real.
bed bugs, roaches, like because all that's a possibility in hotels and all that. Like I was never the type of person to walk into a hotel and like start flipping mattresses,
Yeah.
but I am now.
Well, and it only
Like-
takes one for it to like really destroy your life whenever you
Yeah,
get back
because
home.
it's such a pain in the butt to try to deal
Yeah.
with that. Like just the whole thought of it. I'm like I know that this is like harmless and it's a nuisance if it happens to you, but I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right, so like I will flip mattresses now. I was staying in an Airbnb in Cincinnati, and this is in like some lady's basement, and she's probably living in like she's living. This is a nice neighborhood. Like
Yeah.
this is one of the nicest, cleanest houses I've ever been in my life. It's nicer and cleaner than my own house. But I got in there and I was like, whoop, flip that mattress right up because it's like I'm just like so nervous when I travel now
Yeah.
about stuff like that. And I don't know. I think I do have like a touch of like OCD when it comes to like just cleanliness,
I don't think that that's OCD though.
except for at my own house.
I think that you, I think that, I think that you just have a preference on things. I think of obsessive compulsive, and I think of those people that like have to knock the door 3 times before they walk through it.
Well, like for me, it's like thoughts that cycle over and over and over and over and over. Like when I'm laying in that hotel bed,
Yeah.
like I've got to convince myself to stay in that bed. Like it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. You're bougie compulsive.
I think I am. And it's funny because I have no reason to be. I wasn't raised with money, and I currently don't have any money, so I don't know why I am.
Nah, I think you're justified in just wanting to be in something that is clean and comfortable and not take stuff with you, not take more with you than you came with. So,
yeah.
anyways, hey man, we're gonna get into it. We're continuing our discussion on the Book of Judges, and this is such a unique story with the story of Gideon because whenever you read through his story, you look at some things, and some of the situations and the instances that are happening are just they're very I don't know. For me, they're peculiar.
Yeah.
And the way that Gideon and God have conversations with each other. But we'll get into it. And once you hear this, you're going to be like, okay, that is kind of like strange, but obviously it's there for a reason, and we're going to unpack it and try to figure out how we can apply these things to life and what kind of truth that we can learn from it. But so after Deborah, who we talked about on the last podcast, the Israelites are back under captivity with and the Midianites are in control. Yeah. And so it's been 7 years since Deborah died before we see Gideon jump on the scene. But some pretty crazy stuff happens before we even hear about Gideon. It's setting us up for what the Israelites are doing and how they're living and just the kind of like control that the Midianites have over the Israelites. It's such a strong oppression for them that they have completely left where they were currently living, and they are in the caves, they're in the mountains. Every time they plant crops, they're coming and they're being destroyed. Anytime the Midianites hear that they have like livestock or cattle or anything like that, they're either taking them or they're killing them. They're leaving the Israelites with almost nothing. Mm-hmm. They are living in a cave. They probably are eating whatever kind of random bush that they can find out there, or just whatever. And I mean, it has got to be absolutely like miserable conditions. So 7 years goes by, and once again, we see the Israelites just being frustrated with their situation, and they are crying out to God for help. And so God sends an angel to appear in front of Gideon, and he's like, "Hey, you're going to be Israel's hero." And so we see this conversation happen between the angel and the angel of the Lord and Gideon. And so the angel says something that's really interesting, like right off the bat. It just says, "Gideon, the Lord is with you."
Yeah.
And I think that that's like super important for everything that you're going to hear about Gideon, because you're always going to see that the things that God has asked him to do, like he's never left him, and he's always been there, and he's given Gideon loads of patience that you would not expect if it was from anybody else, with these asks and these requests that Gideon has. But anyways, um, so um, so the Lord he challenges him, and he says, "Hey, I'm with you. I need you to go and rescue Israel." And then Gideon just says some things that he's just like it's kind of like reminiscent of like Moses, kind of like I'm trying to give you an out to where I want you to select somebody else. He's like, "Look, my clan's the weakest. I'm like the absolute least of my personal family.
Yeah.
Like all these things, like who am I? Like, and once again, God says, like, I will be with you."
Yeah. So the really interesting thing about this original interaction between the angel of the Lord, which some people will tell you when you see the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, that some people would say that that's possibly Jesus.
Yeah.
Showing up. Others don't. I don't care one way or another, to be honest, on that. But the first thing that he says to Gideon, and there's like clues as to why this is so peculiar in the first couple verses. Gideon is threshing wheat in a wine press.
Yeah.
Okay. You're supposed to thresh wheat on the threshing floor. You're supposed to press wine in the wine press.
Yeah.
Why is Gideon threshing wheat, which requires altitude and wind to properly do this? The wine presses were hollowed out into the ground where there's no wind and no altitude.
Yeah.
So what we see is that Gideon is a chicken. He's scared.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of Israel is. They're hiding in caves and all of this. Gideon is literally trying to thresh wheat in a wine press. So when they would thresh wheat, what they would do, they would go up to a really high area. They would take the wheat, they would kind of throw it up in the air, and the wind would knock away the chaff, and it would leave the good part. So you need to be up high with some wind. He's trying to do that in a hollowed out rock, essentially, in the ground. So Gideon is not like a big, brave warrior.
Yeah.
We can tell that right from the beginning. And the angel of the Lord shows up. And the first thing that he says to Gideon is, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Like, wait, angel of the Lord, do you not see that this guy's literally hiding from his enemies right now?
Yeah.
He's literally threshing wheat in a wine press. He looks like an idiot.
Yeah.
He is scared. He is hiding. He looks weak. And yet, the angel of the Lord goes, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And this right here, one of the things that's so interesting is that most of us do not see ourselves the way that God sees us whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? Like Gideon's not thinking, wait a second, me, mighty warrior? And that's why he goes on. He goes, "Sir, if the Lord's with us, why is there so much bad going on? Why are we getting overran by our enemies if the Lord is with us? I'm not the strongest. I'm from the weakest clan." On and on and on. He's got all these different like objections to this thing because he doesn't even see himself the way that God sees him whatsoever. God already knows what he has put in Gideon to prepare him for what he's going to call him to do in the future. But Gideon doesn't see that. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle and fumble is they don't ever see themselves. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not good enough. I don't, whatever it is, fill in the blank. I don't have this. I'm not this. I'm not this. Whatever. And it's like, but if God's calling you to it, if God's laying it out in front of you, then perhaps there's stuff about the way that he created you that you are not yet aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's much about my life right now that I would have thought back 10 or 20 years ago. I would have thought, oh yeah, that's in me. Like I don't think I would have ever thought, hey, you're going to be a public speaker when you're 36 years old. I would have never thought that when I was 16. That was the last thing on my radar. Like, hey, you're going to go and speak in front of people literally every week.
Yeah.
And then on some occasions get invited, out of state to go And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't. That's not me. I don't do that sort of stuff. But like, there's stuff that God has already placed in us that we're not even aware of. That until it's time, we may not even know. And so that first interaction is really interesting. Like, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Yes, you, the one that's scared and hiding from your enemies. Within that scared, weak-looking individual is who God sees as a mighty warrior.
Yeah.
Like that's bizarre to me.
And so it's almost kind of like whenever he's having this conversation, he's just like, look, I'm the least of, like, the clan I'm a part of the tribe that I'm a part of. Like, we're the least of the least, and I'm the least of all of those people.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm also the least in my family.
Yeah.
And so he's it's interesting that you point that out.
And that's how he feels, though. And that's the difference between how you feel and how God actually made you to be and what he's actually placed in you. Right? Like, you might not feel like you're good enough. You might not feel like you're ever going to amount to anything. You might not feel like you have any gifts or abilities or strengths or anything like that. And I promise you that the way that God sees you is drastically different. And then this is kind of what happens to all of us when we're in Gideon's place, when we're scared, when we're afraid, when things aren't going our way. His first question is, you say that the Lord is with us, but, like, why is all this happening to us?
Yeah.
Well, that would be because, first off, while all this is happening, we already know the answer to that, and we're only 6 chapters in. Because of Israel's unfaithfulness. Like, if y'all would stop turning your back on God, he would stop allowing people to come and oppress you. But the presence of problems does not, like, mean that God's not with you. That's not meaning his lack of presence in your life either.
Yeah.
Right? We fall for that lie all the time. Like, we just talked about this on this my most recent sermon. Like, when David's son Absalom was trying to take over Israel from him, like, people were saying, oh, God's given up on you, God's not with you anymore, David, on and on and on. It's like, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
The presence of problems doesn't mean that God's presence isn't still with us, because sometimes it's these types of moments that are needed. And we know that Israel needed to be overran because that's the only way God ever got their attention. That's kind of the human condition. If we were able to be disobedient and turn our backs on God with no consequences whatsoever, when would we ever turn around?
Yeah.
Both of us have stories of how we had to hit absolute rock bottom before the Lord could get our attention. For the vast majority of people, that is the case. I know people that, like, early on in life, they just accepted the Lord and they never went away from it. That's awesome. Those are great, beautiful stories. Mm-hmm. But for people like us, I had to hit a wall before I would ever look somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's Israel's issue, is they have to completely get overtaken before they will finally look up. So he says, where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about? Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt, and now the Lord's abandoned us? Yes, because he's trying to get your attention, Gideon. He's trying to get your people's attention because you guys are so prone to idolatry that you don't realize idolatry always leads to oppression, and oppression eventually leads to exile. Like, you don't understand that, so that's why you keep falling into this. But he says, then verse 14, the Lord turned to him, go in the strength that you have. Again, meaning that what God has already put inside of Gideon is more than what Gideon is even aware of. Like, go in the strength that you have, even if it doesn't feel like a lot, even if it doesn't feel like it's enough. Like, you go and do what God has called you to do in the strength that you have. And he says, am I not the one that's sending you? Like, whatever little bit that you do have, when you're being sent by God, is more than enough to do whatever it is that he's sending you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you don't have to have an overwhelming amount of strength. You don't have to have an overwhelming amount of talent or ability or anything like that if it's truly what God's calling you to do. You just don't have to, because he makes up the difference in that.
Yeah.
And again, this is not like some nod to that nonsense quote, like God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. That's not a true statement. God calls the qualified all the time.
Yeah.
The second part of the statement is true, though. He does qualify the called. Like if he calls you to it, like he is going to equip you to do it.
Yeah.
Like that, there's no way that God would call you to do something and be like, just figure it out.
Yeah.
Like that's not the way that he operates. And so then this like self-doubt like creeps in. Like you probably are familiar with this. Whoever's listening to this, you've been there before. A little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, whoa, wait a second. Sounds like you're calling me to something that's bigger than me. And then we start feeling like I am the weakest in my clan. My clan is the weakest in all of the tribe, and my tribe is the weakest in all of Israel. Like everything is stacked against me. I have no reason to think highly of my situation. Why in the world would I think that God is really going to do this through me? And on and on and on and on it goes with this level of self-doubt that goes like, I don't think that I'm enough. I don't think that I have what it takes. Like, that is a very familiar feeling for me, right? Like that is a very familiar feeling for me because I never really thought much of myself growing up.
Yep.
Never thought much of myself as a young adult. Like high school, college, everything just like middle of the road. Like not bad, just like middle of the road. Like I never thought that I would, that God would have any sort of greatness in store or any like level of leadership or influence or anything like that.
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be in the service industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what it was. Like I was either going to be in the kitchen or be in charge of like a wait staff or something like that. And then, like, which is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those jobs, but
I mean, there's leadership and things that are necessary in those. I just like in what God has asked me to do to come be the leader of a church that runs 400, 500 people, has a staff of like 9 to 10 people, brings in over $500,000 a year. Like, I would have never guessed that is what he had in store for me. And then I would look back and go like, but God, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? What about this? And so like, I understand Gideon's like feelings here because this is how I feel all the time.
Yeah.
Like, especially when things are difficult.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like when there's like we're facing all these different things in ministry or whatnot, and you got financial issues going on and things that need taken care of and all this, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, I think one of the most recent ones for you is you have zero construction background, and then trying to lead this big old team to go through and. You're like,
I mean, you were with me yesterday. They came in. They said, "Do you want this floor laid long way or sideways?" And I'm like, "You're the flooring guy. Why don't you do it the way that you would do it if it was your house? Why am I answering that question?"
I was like, "Can you lay it diagonally?" And everybody was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!"
Yeah,
like because that way it's the best of both worlds.
It was so funny. The guy, the general contractor came in my office. I think it was on Monday, and he goes, "Hey, you wanted to replace all the outlets, right?" And I was thinking, I don't know what that means, like at all. I don't know what are you talking about? Replace the outlets? Like, you mean like the face covers? No, the outlets. I'm like, should I do that? Yeah. He's like, well, some of them got paint on them. I'm like,
let's scrape off the paint.
I'm like, I said, is it a lot of money? He's like, it's not a lot of money. I said, all right, just do it. Because I don't know. Like, Again, like when this is what people don't understand about being called into ministry.
You got to be good.
We went to school to study the Bible, okay, and took a couple of leadership classes.
Yeah.
And in the past month, I have worked with general contractors. I have been a landscaper personally out in our flower beds.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to speak, 3, 4, 5 times a month.
You've been a mover.
I've been a mover of furniture yesterday.
Yeah.
I took apart bookshelves,
well, you've been a dishwasher. Yeah, you've been in deconstruction of items.
Yeah, none of which do I have any expertise in.
Yeah,
whatsoever. Like me with a hammer in my hand.
Yeah, I was kind of worried.
It's almost as nonsensical as like me sitting behind that keyboard. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
right. Like I can make some noise with it, but it might not be the right thing whatsoever. Yeah. But like, and again, my whole education is centered around studying the Bible and teaching people the Bible, right? So like when someone like when I'm sitting in an elder meeting and they're like, "Hey, we got this issue on the facility. What are we?" And I'm like, I don't know, again, and then they're like, there's budget questions, and I go, listen, I went to school to study the Bible. I'm not a finance major.
Yeah.
They didn't teach me how to run $600,000 budgets
Yeah.
whenever I was studying Deuteronomy. Like they didn't do that. So like when in ministry, like we get asked to do all sorts of crap all the time that like we are so far out of our league for most of us. But yet, somehow, God has placed in us, or at least around us, resources and capabilities to handle whatever it is that's in front of us.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing going on with Gideon here. Like what God is going to call Gideon to, that we're going to talk about as we keep on going, we're going to realize God has already given Gideon everything that he needed. So whenever he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior, go in the strength that you already have," like those two statements are found out to be true.
Yeah.
But they don't find out that they're true till he actually goes and does it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was funny. After Michael left, if anyone listens and doesn't know like the backstory of our church, I was the lead teaching pastor. We had another pastor named Michael. He handled all the executive side of it. And I was sitting in some elder meetings over like the last 2 years or so since Michael left, and the elders all go like, "Scott, we are so impressed at your level of administration. Like, we didn't know that you had any administrative gifts whatsoever."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, of course you didn't know that because I didn't need to use them. Like, you don't find out about the gifting that you have until you are actually in a season where you actually need to use it."
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of us have probably told ourselves that we can't do certain things, and the only reason why you think that you can't do something is because you actually haven't tried to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You haven't been put in a situation where you have to do it, and as long as it's what God is calling you to and putting it in front of you, then my guess is he's going to give you some level of gifting in that, or he's going to put people around you
Yep.
to fill in that gap. That's one of the really nice things about our staff here is it's very complementary in the sense that like where I'm weak, God has placed people around me that are very, very strong in different areas. And so he'll either give you the gift to do it or he'll put people around you because you do have like construction type background. Cheryl is a people person where I am not.
Yeah.
Megan is very good on like social media and videos and
Content creation.
and like just anything dealing with technology. Like it's just not my forte. I think everyone's always trying to hack my phone. Like every time I get a text, even from the Red Cross, I'm like, yeah, not today, ISIS, right? Like it's just not happening. Like
they're like, we just want your blood. You're like, sure, you
yeah,
want my
I know
blood.
what you want. You want my bank account. Like so, I'm
you
that
want
guy.
all my blood.
Yeah, I am that guy that like every website I go to, it goes, well, the top of it said not secure. Should I don't like so like God places all these people around me in all my areas of weakness. And then in the areas where there's not people around me in those areas of weakness, then either God will place someone there or I'll find out that I have some sort of competency in that area. And that's what Gideon is going to find out. And it doesn't really the other side of this, Gideon's own self-perception does not matter to God whatsoever.
Yeah.
So God doesn't really care if you don't think much of yourself because he thinks an awful lot of you.
Yeah.
Or else he wouldn't be placing you in the position that you're in.
One of the great things that I think is funny, like especially the way that you put it this way, like I can imagine like Gideon starting to feel really good about himself.
Yeah.
And God goes, "Hey man, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go confront your dad and break some of his stuff." I mean, that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, wait, what? Because we've had, for me, my relationship with my father, especially whenever I was just a complete screw up, just like being an addict and all those other things, and like my relationship just wasn't as good whenever I came to Jesus. Even it's always been a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think that we are at a really, really good and healthy spot right now. But it took years of kind of like earning my dad's trust because I was just a knucklehead. And God just says, hey, I want you to go to your dad's. I want you to steal this bull from your dad, this specific bull, and then I want you to go tear down this altar that has been made in honor of Baal, and tear down the Asherah pole and just completely wipe it down, and then rebuild an altar, doing it specifically. Take the pole that you just cut down and use it as firewood in this altar and sacrifice this bull. And so he does it in the middle of the night. He's got some buddies with him, and they go and do it in the middle of the night, and in the morning people are all freaking out. And so Gideon just says, look, like, if you're going to kill me, I just want one request. Like, I want Baal to come and defend himself, like, in these things. And so after that day, like, that happens, they give him, like, a new name, which means Baal defends himself. I forget what it is. But then we start to see the armies of Midian and Amalek and others from the east form an alliance to go up against Israel. Gideon does make the call to other tribes to form their armies and to come together to go up against this big old army. And then this is a very interesting point in the story to where Gideon starts making some requests, and I think he does it out of a sense of reverence, because you see, like, the way that they put it, he's just like, look, like, I know that this is what you've asked of me to do, but, like, if you don't mind, like, I'm just a humble servant, like, don't be upset with me, but I need a sign.
Yeah. Well, I think both of those stories that you're the one with his father and then the one that we're getting ready to get into with the fleece, both of them once again highlight how Gideon feels about himself.
Yeah.
And how he sees himself. God tells Gideon to go and tear down the Asherah pole and take down the altar of Baal.
Yeah.
He goes in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a chicken. The Lord told him, hey, you're a mighty warrior.
Yeah.
And he's still thinking, I don't know. So he goes under the cover of night and does it.
Yeah.
Like he's a chicken. And then God's going to call him to go and to defeat these armies. So, well, wait a second. Before I go do that, I just want to make sure. It's like after everything else, like, because we skipped over this at the beginning of chapter 6, right after this little exchange. Hey, you're a mighty warrior. The Lord is with you. Oh, what about this? And he goes, well, let me make sure it's really you. This is not the first time
Gideon. I forgot about that.
That Gideon put the Lord to the test, right? So Gideon goes and makes that food, and the Lord makes it disappear and such. And he goes, oh, my gosh, it's really you.
Yeah.
So he's already once as he put God to the test to say, like, is this really you? And then he comes back again. He goes, now, wait, I know about this whole war thing. Like, I know you've already called me a mighty warrior. You told me to go in the strength that you've had. You've already brought me success in the first mission that you gave me.
Yep.
You've already proven to me who you are. But wait a second. Let me just make sure that it's real. It's like, goodness gracious, Gideon. Now, there's two sides of this. I think Gideon is a chicken and has no reason to be, because God's already spoken that he's a mighty warrior, that he's going to lead Israel out of oppression and all of this. He should trust that. But on the other side of it, you still see the graciousness of God to go, all right, look, I can see that you're struggling. And rather than berating him, beating him down, giving up on him, he goes, okay, I'll play your stupid little game, right?
Yeah.
So Gideon's like, all right, here's what I want to do. I'm going to put a fleece out, which I guess it's like a towel, essentially. That's probably an easier way for us to think about it.
Yeah.
Put this out on the ground. I want it to be wet, and I want I want it to to be wet.
Yeah, the first one is the
dry.
fleece to be wet. Yep.
He comes out, it's wet, the ground is dry,
Yeah.
and he goes, all right, God, just one more time. It's like, goodness gracious, Gideon.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, this is what happens. This is how people are when it comes to, like, they feel God calling them to do something. They're like, well, let me pray about it. It's like, okay, but eventually you have to stop praying and actually get to work.
Yeah, I was gonna make that same statement. It was like, if God has already asked you to do something, don't continue to ask for a sign. You're wasting time.
Yeah, once He's already made it clear,
Yeah.
you don't have to pray about it no more.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I love when people are, like, hey, would you like to volunteer to do this or whatnot. Well, let me pray about it. Listen, God's already been pretty clear on how he feels about serving others.
Yeah.
You don't have to pray about serving others.
Yeah.
Oh, let me pray about if I'm going to be generous. God's already made being generous pretty clear. You don't have to pray about it.
Yeah.
Sure, you may pray about the amount of generosity, but not the act of generosity.
Yeah.
You may pray about what position you're going to volunteer in,
Yeah.
but not about whether or not you will volunteer and be part of something.
Yeah.
Like things that God has already made clear. Let me pray about it. You don't have to pray about things that God's already made clear.
Yeah.
And that's like, for Gideon, it's like, bro, listen, he's already told you what you're going to do, that he's given you everything that you need to do it.
Yeah.
So eventually, you just got to get going. And God will play games, these little games with you if you want, but why do you need that, Gideon? It's because he still hasn't dealt with these own insecurity issues, this imposter syndrome, this doubt that he has about who he is and his position in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what most people just they never come to fully realize or actualize what God has made them to be and what God has called them to do, because they never get past how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
They're just ate up with it. And so through this like little Fleece scene, God shows his faithfulness and graciousness to Gideon again. And I think now Gideon is finally poised and ready to go and to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep on going, or do you want to?
No, let's stop.
Okay.
Let's stop there.
Because I think that's good. Once God asks you to do something, you just need to get up and do it. And the only prayer you need to do is just like, where do I serve? How much do I give? Give me the continued strength to be committed to what you've asked me to do. So that's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All righty. You ready for your favorite point? Your favorite part?
Nope.
Yep, I am. This is great.
I'm going to answer this really quick and snarky.
No, this makes me so excited. Because I like reading this and then looking at your face, and you're just like always. What is. What is one thing you'll never do again?
Just one thing?
Yep. What is one thing you will never do again?
I mean,
Drugs.
that list could go on and on and on. Most recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be my roommate in college. He told me that he just took his son whitewater rafting.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was like, "Oh, we loved it." I said, "I hate that. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never do that again."
Yeah.
I went whitewater rafting with my cousin for his bachelor party. And, of course, I was the one person that fell out of the boat, feet over my head, hit my head on a rock, and they could barely get back in the boat.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again.
Dude, I've got a story about whitewater rafting that'll kind of make your skin crawl because you don't like the rapids and stuff like that. So we're in Mexico. We were on a cruise, and one of the little deals, like the little skirmishes or whatever that they have, what do they call it? It's not a skirmish. Excursion. That's what I meant.
Skirmishes.
Yeah, it's like a fight.
fight.
Yeah.
They offering those in Mexico?
Yeah, you have to punch some guy before you get in the boat. But anyways, so we go on this excursion, and so we're in the boat, and we go down like the rapids or whatever. Like we take these jeeps like all the way up to the top of like this mountain, and it's like all the way. It's cool. But there's this point to where it like the river opens up, and it's like super calm, and so everybody gets out of the boats and they're swimming around in this water, and it's all spring fed, like it's crystal clear from the top of the water all the way down, and so we're swimming around or whatever, and and you could literally drink this is like the one safe water that you could probably drink in Mexico. Because it's crystal clear, and it's coming from a spring. But you don't want to do that because there's other people swimming. Anyways.
Yeah. And that would look very awkward.
Well, I'm swimming around, and I'm just, like, looking around. I'm like, man, I can see all the way down to the bottom. And I look down, and I go, holy cow, there's a orange rock down at the bottom. And I asked the guy, hey, can I take off my life jacket so I can swim down and get this orange rock? Like, I just want to see what it is. And he was like, yeah, just real quick. And he can see me because it's not like muddy water. I swim down, I pick up this orange rock and I grab it, and it is like kind of soft a little bit. I'm like, what the heck do I have? And so I get up, and then I come up to the surface, and I'm grabbing this thing. I mean, it's like as big as a coconut. It's huge. And it's a stinking mango. It's a mango because they had mango trees, and it was the only orange rock in the water.
Yeah.
I ate that mango right then and there because the guy was like, oh, it's a mango. You can eat it. And the water's cold, too. It's like 55 degrees because it's coming from the top of the mountain. It was the best mango I've ever had in my life. So I ate some random mango that I found in a river in Mexico and I feel like you and I are about to have a skirmish.
Yeah, that's gross. I ate mangoes right off the trees in Nicaragua, but I didn't do it where people swim around and undoubtedly in cold water relieve themselves on your mango.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. So things that I'll never do again, I wouldn't eat that mango again.
Yeah. It was actually
the
fantastic.
list of things that I would not do again is so long.
I know that.
The list
that
of
was
things,
your question.
Yeah. The list of things that I would like to do in my life is so much shorter than the stuff that I would like not to do.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's me.
All righty. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the conversation that you and I have been having week after week, and it's been really good. Hope that y'all have enjoyed it as well. We'll see you again next Friday. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.